podcast for those who suffer, which is everyone.
It's a space where we can speak honestly about what it feels like to be in desolate places without losing hope.
Welcome to In the Thicket. You may have heard the saying, comparison is the thief of joy, or alternately, comparison is the death of joy. But that's what we're talking about this week, about the ways that we compare ourselves to other people, or even the ways that we compare ourselves to ourselves and where we thought maybe we should be. We talk about all those things, but also what's been helpful for us in our journeys to compare ourselves less and to really find our uniqueness in the Lord and in the things that He's bringing us to be. We hope it's helpful for you. God bless. Hello, everyone. Welcome to In the Thicket. How are you?
Hey, Erin.
Oh, us. I wasn't sure if you were talking to us or our listeners. So hi, listeners.
Oh.
I'm Nicole.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm doing okay. I'm doing good. Sorry.
I'm Erin. Nice to be back with you guys.
Yes.
Thanks for all your graciousness and in praying for us or like listening to other stuff during the week that we were taking a break. It was good to take a break, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
Both of these ladies have been very busy this fall.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, today I've just moved my mic because I have my mic on it's like on an arm thingy, my podcast mic, like an elbow, I don't know, a thing. Anyways,
right.
But that means that I can sort of swing it and stretch it over so that I can like recline on my couch and lounge.
Nathan can feed you grapes while you're podcasting.
Wouldn't that be great? So
do you like grapes? Are you a fan of grapes or?
I love grapes. Yeah. When I was a kid, I would just like eat them like candy, and my mom had to like ration the grapes because they're just so good. So I always would like bring them to potlucks and stuff, even down here, and I found that no one like likes grapes. And I don't
really.
Yeah, I've just felt like if I bring them to potlucks, they do not get all eaten.
I love
and
grapes.
I don't understand it. Yeah, people are very mad about grapes. I don't understand it. I only noticed this when I moved to Nashville.
I don't understand. A hot take.
Yeah.
Do people in Nashville not like grapes?
I don't know. I just, maybe.
Nashville, come on. Grapes are good.
That's true. They're also very good frozen. Like
I can't do frozen grapes. My teeth are too sensitive.
They're too sensitive for it. I do. They make good ice cubes as things if you use frozen grapes, and because then they melt like a little bit, and then you can like chew them, and they're like it's like a grape slushy.
A grape
slushy. But like you chew on it, and it's like still icy, but not like teeth breaker icy, but just like slushy icy. Also, everybody, Winnipeg is from Nicole. Good Lord, it's going to be that kind of episode. Nicole is from Winnipeg, which is the slushy capital of the world.
The Slurpee capital, yes.
Sorry, Slurpee.
Yes, that's all right. Which means that Winnipeggers consume more Slurpees per capita than any other city in the world.
It's so funny though, because Winnipeg is very cold a lot of the year.
Yep.
So it's just interesting that you guys.
Well, I think there's just like so much winter that at some point people are like, whatever, it's winter, I'm just still gonna have Slurpees out here.
Because they're just
more
delicious.
Slurpees than anybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it was when we were in Winnipeg for your wedding. And then I remember stopping at a gas station there, and I was going to get a drink, and I was like, ooh, I want a Slurpee. This because I haven't had one in a while. And then it reignited this deep and abiding love of Slurpees.
Really?
And so now here I know where, because it's the Circle K is the name of the like store / like gas station that you get Slurpees at here. So I basically know where they all are around me now.
That's awesome. I do not like Slurpees. I've never liked them. I find them, I think I would have I had them once or twice as a kid or more or whatever, but they're so sugary. I would get super thirsty after, and so then I just like didn't like them. That's my story. It's pretty lame, but
that's okay. That's okay. I mean, honestly, they're not really that as enjoyable as they used to be with the paper straws. So because for people who are not in Canada, I don't know if in the States have they phased out plastic straws or
not entirely, but there are places where there are paper straws.
Because basically they made it, I think it's actually illegal in Canada now to have like
single-use
plastic stuff.
plastics.
Yeah, exactly. Single-use plastics. Yeah. And so, I mean, honestly, for everything else, I'm so in support of it. I struggle to be supportive of that for straws because
it doesn't make any sense. They're soggy.
I know. And it's so hard to drink anything with a soggy. So, I mean, you get like you can get even from like
metal
Dollarama,
straws?
yeah, like get like metal straws and stuff. But then the problem with those is that then
hard to clean, right?
They're hard to clean, and then you end up like not cleaning them right away, and then you gotta like get the like scrubber, like the little long brush thing. Yeah, and it's disgusting, and then you just throw them out and buy more at the Dollarama anyways. So I'm not sure that it's actually accomplishing what it's. Anyways, controversial issue, everybody. You can let us know
Weigh in on the comment.
Instagram. Oh yeah, this is great. So we hit 1,000 followers on Instagram today.
Yeah, thanks, folks. Yay. That's really fun.
It's mostly Aaron. That's all Aaron. It's
true.
Which is awesome. Who like is hilarious.
It's mainly just me amusing myself, and also because we had one reel recently. So this reel was not really about like anything Catholic per se. It was basically like a reel, and the caption says, "When you actually close your laptop when Netflix asks if you're still watching." And so we, as of now, have almost 50,000 views on it.
That reel.
That reel. Yeah. So people who maybe followed the account because of that reel are probably very confused as to where
yeah, it's so disconnected from anything.
Totally like not really explicitly Catholic reel, and then like, what the heck, suffering? What the heck?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
That's really funny.
Anyways, so it's good, So today we are going to talk about a very wonderful topic that I think has come into like tangentially in some of the other episodes that we've done, but we're going to attack it head on today. And we are going to talk about this when you think about the phrase comparison is the thief of joy. And we put it in quotation marks because it's an actual quote from people. Like, comparison is the thief of joy. Supposedly Teddy Roosevelt said that. And then there's also comparison is the death of joy, which is Mark Twain. Yeah, said that one. So and then you hear, I mean, I've heard that saying so many times in like women's talks or things like that. So yeah, so we're going to chat about that day. So I am curious, ladies, who would like to go first and share about your experience of being hollowed out in the depth of your soul when you were just kidding.
Exciting. I can share some things.
Nice.
Yeah, I think the concept of comparison has been actually a very, very big one in my life. That's something I've thought about a lot. And for me, it really started or became like an issue when I was a university student, and I was very much like, achievement driven and all of these kinds of things. And I even had a friend who we were in the same program and all the same classes, and we would like compare our grades on assignments with one another just to kind of like see where we're at. Which finally we realized like that wasn't a really healthy idea for either of us. Because we both had the same struggle where we were so achievement driven and needed to know, and I really struggled with, that sort of like comparison can be a sneaky thing in your head. This was like I was seeking it out, not even realizing that was unhealthy.
Right.
And but that did a number on me, and it became to a point where I can remember one time, it was like my second year of university or something, and I got a 98 on something and she got 100. And I was like in like depressed mood, like really low for about a week after that. That's how twisted and how kind of distorted my thinking had become.
Right.
And so and I talked to my parents about it and stuff, and because I remember just being, it was like it became like an obsession, really, of comparing myself to someone else, because it wasn't just about like the grades or trying to like one up somebody. It was that I believed in order for me to sort of succeed in life and be happy, I I have to be the best or something like that.
Yeah.
And if I'm not the best, that means that I'm failing and I am not going to succeed in my life, in my career, and I'm not therefore not going to be happy and my whole life is a waste or so, you know. So I don't remember exactly what the thoughts were. This is, you know, many years ago at this point, but that was essentially what it was. And it was a real struggle for me. It took me, I think, like all 4 years of university to kind of deal with this and start to realize what was going on with this comparison.
Yeah.
But I remember my parents helped me. I think, you know, my dad helped me. He sat down with me and he was like, okay, we're gonna make a list of true things. And we like wrote down a list of true things, and I kept this list like in my pocket. And I would sometimes take it out and look at it. This is before, like, you know, I used a cell phone very much. So I didn't even have a cell phone until like my second year of university or something like that. Anyways, and basically on the list, the main thing was like, you know, God has a specific plan for my life based on who I am, and it's different than anyone else. And therefore, it doesn't matter how I'm doing or what grades I get or what opportunities I get compared to someone else, because God is going and because he has a new plan for my life, and also like whatever I actually need in order to do the thing that God's calling me to do, he will give me what I need. It's not up to me to, you know. Yeah. So I had these lists of different things. But there was times I remember where I would go into these mental spirals, these sort of obsessive mental spirals. And I remember one or two times like calling my parents and being like, I'm looking at this list, but I it's just not working for me. Like, can you remind me of these things? And they would just say, okay, you know, and they would just like go through the list with me and remind me of these true things.
That's so beautiful.
I needed that. Yeah. So it's definitely something that even now with my own students, you know, because I think it's a common thing, comparison amongst college students, because everything is it's quantified. Your action, your whole life is school, basically. Well, maybe not your whole life, but you know, a big portion of your life is school, and your behavior in school is quantified. You get a number that rates your performance. And so that, I think that's just really, yeah, I just think that can do a lot of data. It's easy for people to fall into comparison. So I try to, you know, not in so much detail, but, you know, just remind students of like, stay in your lane, do the thing you're called to do. Don't worry about anyone else. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's my story.
Yeah.
How about you, Rach?
I think, I think it's so hard actually there's so many ways in which comparison it has kind of impacted or has just kind of woven into my life. And for me, it's like, I sort of have a kind of personality where I think, you know, there's some people who sort of like, you really want to fit in, not in a bad way, not because you're a weak personality, but you're like, that's what I want. Like, I want what I want, the best stuff that everybody has. I feel like my personality has always been like, I don't really want to fit in. Like, I want to be like, I mean, I want to be like, you know, loved, and I want to like people, and I want to have friends and stuff like that. But I want to have my own thing. Like, I always have sort of like been that way to some extent. I wanted to be like I was a huge people pleaser as a child, but I don't think I wanted the store. Like, I never looked at somebody else's life and was like, I want that person's this or that, you know, like I just sort of was like, I just wanted my own thing, but I wanted to be connected with everybody, and I wanted everybody to love me, like, for sure. Like, you know, that definitely. But so it's kind of a strange thing. So it's like thinking about how comparison entered my view or my world was like, in some ways I remember, and this is not true of everybody. Like, I don't, I'm going to talk about something where I think there can be like victim mentality here that I don't particularly want to adopt. That's not a lens that I like. But I remember growing up so I was born in India, and we lived in the Middle East for a while. And two experiences are coming back to my mind where I'm like, I remember like I would watch television, which was primarily like British or American TV. And like, I loved the Spice Girls. I was listening to Britney Spears, like pop music, like all the time, right? And I loved Baby Spice. And I remember like just thinking like the way that I look is not probably not pretty. You know what I mean? Like, I remember thinking that, like, but not really being sure, because I never got that at home. Like, at home, I was very affirmed and everything like that. But I just remember thinking like, I don't know. I think these people are like objectively better looking than me. I think that's and then also I remember having like a friend who was like really slim build, like she was just like kind of a model build, and I was really young. It's not like I watched model runway stuff at all. I didn't know any of that stuff, but I just remember my friend and I would just be like, oh my gosh, like I just like stuff looks really good on her that does not look really good on me, and I was like, sort of, I wasn't really late bloomer. I was probably like 9 when that was happening, so I hadn't really hit puberty yet. And then when I hit puberty, I just looked very different. But like when I was 9, I just kind of looked like a squidgy kid, like I wasn't like super
It's like a
pudgy
normal
or
kid.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, just like a normal kid. But she was like really slender, and she had this sort of like graceful, and she was like tall, and she had this like very graceful everything, like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. And I don't look like that. And so it's like, it wasn't like entirely a physical, I wasn't like obsessed with it, but there was a period of time, I remember, I think when I was like in middle school, where I was a little bit obsessed with things that I just wasn't. I was kind of obsessed with looking a certain way, but I didn't naturally totally look that way. I wasn't never a girl who sort of went all the way in that direction, who like, was extreme in anything. But I just remember having little moments of being like trying to really be something that I wasn't. And I don't really know where that came from. So it came from lots of different things. And I don't like to be like, oh, well, it's the culture's fault and like white privilege. And like, I'm not like, whatever. Those are conversations I'm not trying to touch on right now at all. I'm just saying that like it can creep in lots of ways. And I remember one time, yeah, maybe I've told this story before in the podcast. I can't remember. What I went to World Youth Day in Australia, and it was a time where like I really wasn't like, there were no magazines around me. I wasn't watching TV. And I was surrounded by people, some of who looked very different from me, very beautiful girls, like lots of stuff. And I remember just feeling really free and just feeling like I just, I'm like, I had a routine where I woke up and I had I had like a set of clothes that I would just wear and then launder and wear, and it was like, to think about, and I love clothes, but at the time I didn't have to think about clothes, and I would blow dry my hair every day and it looked the exact same. And I just didn't have to think about these things. All I needed to do was like get up and go out and like meet the Lord, like, and that was like the goal for the day. And I remember I just felt so good about myself and so free. And I remember thinking like, okay, I think this is it. Like whatever stuff that I struggle with, like this is, I think, the way out of it. So that's like one experience of comparison. And I think another major dimension of that in my life has been, because I'm single and I'm in my 30s, it's been sort of two elements there, where it's like looking around me and seeing other people moving forward in their lives and me not. And it hasn't really come for me in the form of envy so much, although I've had brushes with that, in a few places, but that's not primarily been my experience. It's primarily been like feeling left behind, feeling sort of aimless, or like what's going on, and like looking at other people's lives, it sort of magnifies that. Sometimes I don't really struggle with that anymore, but there were moments in my life in the last few years where that was maybe a little bit more of a challenge. But the more challenging for me actually was my own like comparing. So we talk a lot about disappointment on this podcast, but it's like comparing my life, what my life is, to what I thought it would be. And that's like kind of a very different type of comparison, but it definitely, that's a huge, for me, that could be a huge thief of joy. Like that is a temptation that the devil always holds up for me. Like, look, you followed the Lord, look where you are, where did you think, and it's like, it bleeds into all kinds of things, because it'd be like, oh, God lied to you. Like, this is where you thought you were going, but like, that's not where and so, yeah. So that's another area of comparison. I think for me, comparing what I thought I wanted or where I thought I would be with where I actually am, and only seeing where everything is falling short, and just, yeah, like that can be a really thick, like, hole of despair. Like,
it's such a temptation to see like to think that somehow you foiled God's plans for things, like Right.
Or that his plans for things suck.
Right. Yeah. Or that. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which is more my
yeah.
poison.
Yeah.
What about for you, Erin? Yeah.
I think like the thing that actually comes to mind, I just have so much on this. There's like so many ways comparison is like basically the encapsulator of my day in so many like different ways. But I think the thing that came immediately to mind is actually when I was hanging out with my nephew yesterday. So this is my older nephew, and we were doing some of his so he's in first communion this year. He's doing his first communion. So he's first doing his preparation for first reconciliation. So he's got like the workbook, and we're going through the workbook and we're reading all of this stuff. And then it was talking about how everybody is created unique. There's no other person like you. And then it gave this cute little thing where you had to make like a recipe, like you put in 2 shakes of blank and a cup of blank. And then it had all kinds of like adjectives. And so they had to write the adjectives. And that's like the recipe for them. Like
that's so cute.
I know, right? Isn't that so cute?
I like
so I was like, that's very cute. But we were doing it, and it was like when we were doing it, my heart was just like breaking a little bit because my nephew was like he could see like a few things that were, but there was like they had to pick like 10 different adjectives or something like that. And after like the first couple, he was like stuck. You know what I mean? And but the thought process that you could see wasn't a stuckness because he didn't see it in himself. It was a stuckness because he saw other people being better at it than him. Like,
oh yeah,
like one was like funny, and he's like, yeah, but I don't really think I'm as funny as my, it's like
I'm funny, but so-and-so's more funny.
Exactly. But so-and-so's more funny. And I was like, oh, that's like, and he's in grade 2, he's 7,
he's little,
right? Like he's little. And it's so, like, it just strikes me so much how, because I know at home that he gets told all the time, and I tell him all the time, like how funny he is, how good he is, how much I love to be around him. Like he's just like, so he hears those kind of things, but even still, he's picking up all of these things about how he's not enough. He's not as good. He's not as, things like that. And which then like makes him for himself, he's like devaluing his own gifts in that thing, which are like, or his own, and I think like when I think about my own life, like it was just one of those moments of clarity where I was like, oh yeah, like so many times God has used those 2 little nephews to be like, actually, do you see how ridiculous this is? Like, because when I think about myself and I'm like, oh, I'm in my 40s, sitting in a chair a lot of the time, not doing a lot, don't have a job because I'm in a disability. Like, it's like the list is endless about the things that I could say I'm not doing, or the things that I am not, or the holiness that I don't have because of X, Y, and Z, because I'm failing in this way, or I'm not doing enough in this way, or I'm not enough in this way. And that like I would never look at my nephew like that. Like I would never look at him like that.
Right.
Ever. Like it's not even, it's not
like
even
ludicrous
it's like ludicrous. Like I wouldn't even ever, and like to think about how like it reminds me of Catherine of Siena. I think she said something like why do you think that you want to have a different haircut or something, you want to have long hair or something, when the Lord might miss the hair that you have. Or like just her, I totally she totally said something like that, but it is 100% not what I just said. Not in those words, but it was exactly the thing of like that, like so like in my, like, because I mean weight for me, like my weight has gone up and down like all over the place for so that's always been a thing, because that's so like everything in culture says you have to be this way to fit in, even like it's built into everything, like how everything is made and stuff. And I'm like, so it's like constantly being told that I don't have like a right to a place in this world in the same way that other people have. And I'm not saying that, I'm not like on that advocacy train of like we need to widen hallways and like it's nothing like that, but it is like, it is the messaging of that stuff or whatever. But then that one quote from St. Catherine of Siena, like I think about that all the time. I'm like, the Lord would miss my fluffiness. Like he would miss it, you know? And he does, like, because it's like, for me, it's like the being with him and hearing him, like just seeing, it's been new for me in the last little while to observe him or like see him when I'm praying and see not how much like I love him, but actually to see like how much he loves me, like how much he loves being in my presence, which is like crazy to me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, oh yeah, that's for me, that's like the antidote. I'm like, oh, I don't care about anything else then. Like,
exactly.
To be loved. I think that's so important.
I know. The Sisters of Life they have like that mantra, like compare, despair, which I feel like is like not just them, like other people, but like, I just think about like, this is not the way. This is not the way. And it's not like, I was thinking when you're saying, about your nephew thinking like people are funnier. And I remember my dad one time saying to me, my mom, one of them one time saying, there's always going to be someone better than you. There always is. Like, like if on this planet at this moment you are the best at something, someone will come along at a later time. If you die the best at something, someone's going to dethrone you at some point in time. Like it's,
and that's freeing to actually think about that.
Is there there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. Like it doesn't take, you are still you, whatever it is, however God made you, that is who you are. And it's not about if how you are, if being the best version of yourself means that you are the best at something, praise God. But that's, I mean, the virtue is in just being your best, whatever, and wherever that lands you, that's where God wants you to be. And there's a purpose for that. You have to embrace that, but it's not sort of the external order of things that is what then tells you who you are. It's who you are. And then God brings you, because of who you are, to a particular place and a particular time in the order of things that you're then supposed to use to glorify him. But you're supposed to know who you are already way before you get there, actually. Because if you get there and that's what tells you who you are, you're in big trouble, because you ain't going to be there for a long time. Like you're not going to be there forever, And when you have to step down or you have to move off of that place in the world, like, are you going to lose yourself like completely? Who are you,
Well, I think it goes to identity. Like, is our identity in the things that we do and trying to like be the best at that and comparing ourselves, or is it in being loved, being beloved? Because they talk about that, people who maybe win an Olympic medal or win like the Tour de France or some of these things, and they win and there's actually like a low, they hit like a real low, emotional low, because it's like, I achieved this and this is the top. And like, now what? And also, what does this even, like, what does this mean? And all of this kind of like an existential crisis, and realizing like, oh, this is the thing I've been training for and shooting for and comparing myself and whatever for and this is like, this is it.
It's over.
Now it's over. So I think,
I remember, not that I have achieved anything anywhere near Olympic level anything or whatever, any high, but like I remember just like, okay, just being, one of the more like higher students in class, like getting, more of the top grades or whatever. And in the Middle East, where I went to school and in the Indian school system, like you read exams and stuff as like starting in grade 1. And like you win prizes for like the top grade in each subject or whatever. And so I would win prizes and some things and whatever. And it's good. Like, it's great. My parents were proud of me. It was lovely, but I remember that, it's about who are you? Because when I started to make that stuff who I was, I noticed, and as I got older, I was able to articulate this, that when I won something or when I did really well, it never fed me. Like I never felt good about it, actually. It just felt like, okay, what's next? Like, what do I have to do next? Like, it was just like, okay,
like chasing the next high in a sense.
It wasn't even a high. That's the thing, actually. It wasn't even a high for me. Okay. It was like, this is what's expected. This is, I think, who I am. So it's like, what's expected of me. So like achieving high achievement for me was not even like a good feeling. It was just that I had to be normal. Like it just became like, who
It's
I
almost like your
was.
baseline. Well,
It was my
this is
base.
what
Exactly. It was my
interesting.
baseline.
Yeah.
And so then again, the comparison of like, it wasn't an active comparison of like, I'm here, this person's here. It was just like, I gotta hit the baseline. Otherwise I'm nothing, you know?
Right.
And that's why my parents telling me like, no, 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 this is not, no,
Yeah.
like it's really crucial because
Yeah.
it became my baseline. It was like how
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I was like,
Yeah.
like okay, like lovable,
Yeah.
desire, like not even lovable, just like I'm gonna survive. It became
Right.
survival. It was like my
Right.
my existence in a way depended on this baseline, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 It's amazing how I can remember too. Yeah, and I talked about my own struggle with comparisons being something in the far past, but definitely something that continues. But in that far past, I guess not super far, but kind of far, whatever. Um, I remember once being in the class. I think this is my last year or one of my last years of university. We say college in the States, so now I'm getting used to saying college instead of university. But anyways, of university college, I had a professor. I was taking this course, actually on the problem of evil in the world, like on suffering, and it was a great course, but I wasn't doing like super well in it, like not my usual what I and but I remember going to talk to the professor one time about had a question about some course content or something, or I wanted his opinion. And I remember going into that meeting and being like, he's not going to want to talk to me because I'm not the best in his class. And I'm only likable as a person if I am the top of the class. And so I'm only valuable, I'm only worth talking to if I'm the best. And but I went in and he just like talked with me as he would any of his students, and it shattered my worldview. Like he probably would never even realize. To him it was just like another random student coming to meet about this random assignment or something,
Yeah.
But the way that he just treated me as any one of his other students, yeah, it did it like it all of a sudden I was like, oh, maybe my professors being kind to me or liking me or anything like that is not, or or anyone is not based on my achievement, but it's based on just that I'm a person or something,
I feel like we could like call this episode Overachievers Anonymous.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it
yeah,
would also
totally. Yeah.
100%. That was like in high school, I was like graduated third in the class. And that was, I was third behind two guys who were very big nerds. So, so I still managed to graduate third in the class and go to all the parties. And I was like super, the like
smarty pants
cool
of like,
you were like super cool but also really smart,
right? Exactly.
Smart.
So like yes, exactly. Yeah. And then I went to university, and then the first time that I wrote a paper and I got a C on it, like that was the very first thing that I got back at university, and I melted down and was on the phone with my mom for like 3 hours, like, oh, I don't know. But the thing is, like, I feel like because there's something about comparison, like that it can serve a useful role, right? Like in some ways, like even in the same way that shame can serve a useful role because it tells us that there's something to be valued there. Like it points to something that can be valued. But then like so in terms of comparison, it's like there is something to be said for the way we live together and the way we cohere in society, and things like that. Like even like Jordan Peterson talks about that a lot, right? Of like roles and fitting in, and there is something of that's essential to the human person and to the flourishing of society. But then I feel like it makes me think about this song Alanis Morissette wrote, I can't remember what album it's from, but it's like the whole song is like that I would be good even if I did nothing, that I would be good even if I went bankrupt, that I would be good even if I gained 10 pounds, that I would be good with or without you. And so it's like this sense of like the freedom that can come from when we know that we're good. But I think the problem is that if we tell ourselves that we're good, like I tell myself that I'm good and I don't believe it. Like, because then I get into this conversation of myself where I put qualifications on my goodness that are tied to things that I do or
I'm good
achievements that I make. I'm good
X, Y,
because
Z.
exactly. And so that's how the conversation goes with myself. Like I can't say to myself, you are good inherently, because I don't believe myself. But then the challenge becomes then, like, I don't remember having, I mean, my parents are so wonderful and I got so much praise from them. But then sometimes it's like the praise that comes from that, then I equate that. It's reinforcing these conversations that I've had with myself already about what makes me good and what doesn't make me good. And then ultimately the only person who can really tell me that I'm good inherently is the Lord, who knows and who I know knows like better than I do what it is,
because he made me.
Exactly. And then I don't sometimes I don't believe him, like, and so that's like, but it's even in that is like a process of coming to believe the Lord and
asking for that
himself.
Grace. Yes.
Which
like
is
I think that's a powerful prayer to pray, is like, Lord, help me to see myself as you see me.
Exactly.
And like returning to that,
Which is humility. I mean, we talk about this a lot, where I bring it up a lot, which is ad nauseum, and I'm sorry, everybody. But like it is humility. Like that's humility at the end of the day, because it's not you and your efforts that give you your value. It's actually your value comes not even from you. It comes from him, but it is yours. It's your value. But it comes from him, and it's sort of like, it's that quote. I think is it John Paul II? Like, we're not
the sum of our weaknesses and failures. We are the sum of the Father's love for us and our real capacity to become the image of his Son.
Amen.
That is the quote that is on my desktop of my computer. It's been there for forever. I love it. I wrote a song about that one. Yeah,
that is the truth.
Yeah. And I think that there's something, if each of us reflects the image and likeness of God, but in like a slightly different way, a different aspect, right? Like that's what we believe. Going back to what you're saying, Aaron, that there can be there's sort of be a good comparison, but I think that's when we see the way that someone else, I don't know, I think about this in my own like moments of conversion in my life, where there were people in my life who were living their faith in a way that I know that I didn't have. And I could see that there's something that they're doing, that there's something that they are that I don't have, or they have that I don't have. And then asking the Lord for that. Lord, give me faith. Make my faith real, I think, is what I prayed, because I saw, feel like I saw people that had real faith. And I mean, a comparison happened. I saw the way that other people were acting and living, and I knew that that was not how I was living, and I desired that. But I think that's different when the way someone else inspires like a genuine desire in us, like a very free desire to grow or to become more of who we are, than where it's more of a mental, at least for me, more of this sort of like mental gymnastics, obsessive kind of thinking patterns and analytical kind of comparison. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to find a different word for it, because I feel like when I think of the word comparison, right? I think of, it's like an ending word. It's like a word that like I'm like doing,
it's a value laden word.
It's a value laden word, and it's an exercise in and of itself, almost like the thing that I'm doing is comparing. But the thing that you're talking about is there was a kind, but I don't even want to use the word comparison. There was a comparison. You're right. Like I saw this.
I guess it's seeing difference. It's truly seeing,
right?
Like looking outside of oneself and seeing someone else as different than you.
And that's not really necessarily comparison. It's like you're able to freely, like and I think that's what it is. It's like to be able to truly see. I think that's the difference. I think comparison is actually a blinding experience. It actually,
it's like a distorted version.
It distorts what you're seeing. Whereas actually just seeing then allows you to also see yourself. Like you're not sort of, when you see yourself, you're not sort of like, oh my gosh, I'm not like them. It's not this like frenetic thing. It's like, I see myself. I see the other. The right things well up inside of me. Like the truth wells up inside of me,
And because when it's like, when there's something like that that's happening of God, it's not a scarcity mindset, which I feel is like tied to comparison, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
There's only so much good that can be had. There's only so many spots that can be had. There's only so much. Like it's like a fighting for something, or not, like a not believing that
Yeah, or
God
it's
is
a
enough.
quantitative way of seeing something, and often it's like, well, then I am not enough for, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's
only one person. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder too, okay, and this is like my last thought, but um I went to the this conference this past weekend at University of Notre Dame, the De Nicola Center for Ethics and Culture. They have this fall conference, and the theme was on personhood, like this like dust of the earth in on persons was the theme. And there was one talk by this woman, and her name is escaping me right now, but she spoke on like images, like in the media of people, and how our exposure to these images can add to our own like comparison and distortion and devaluation of ourselves. It's fascinating, and I think that there's something to that, like Nathan and I, my husband and I have talked about just different forms of social media and how we both have there are different like platforms where that grab us into comparison thought that's not healthy, and that we both learn to stay away. Like, and for me, it's like Instagram. When if I scroll Instagram and I see pictures of people who, and it goes back to this things where their lives are in a place where I perhaps hope that mine would be, like it's looking at, other people, like girls my age or who are younger than me and have like several children. And I am, a professor and I don't have kids yet and I'm married and God willing, we'll have a family, but like I'm not there yet. And that I can get so caught up easily and drawn into this comparison and these lies that come in of like, well, you did something wrong, or there's something wrong with you, or you were flawed from the start, which is why you got married so late, or whatever it is, right? There's any of these lies can come in. So I've learned that I have to be in a specific place emotionally or mentally to be able to even use Instagram without just totally getting sucked into that. So I don't use it very often. Which is, so, and for Nathan, it's other platforms that it's not the visual as much for him. It's, it's maybe whatever other stuff. So, yeah. So it's just like, I think part of it is like, how can we grow in self-knowledge to know that, like, I don't know, maybe some folks don't struggle with comparison temptations, but for many of us, I think it's a daily struggle, and to know sometimes it's just learning to avoid avoid the near occasions of sin, basically, avoid those things that can draw us into. I'm not saying like that this is like necessarily immediately sinful behavior, not from diagnosis as such, but just that analogy. So that's it's like a really practical thing of, yes, we can ask the Lord to help reveal to us who we are and like live in the truth of our values, being loved by Him. And I think all of those things are true, but so I know I'm not there totally believing that all the time, and sometimes I need to also just remove the things that are trying to convince me, or that are making it hard for me to really believe that who I am and where I am in my life is okay.
One thing that has helped me, especially in sort of being this like in this like strange single reality that I am in, has been, because part of it is, I think if you're following the Lord to the best of your ability, which always is like, whatever, somewhat flawed because human and, sinful. But I think when you get to a point where you're like, Lord, like I really actually want to surrender to you. Like, what is my life actually about? Like, first of all, taking stock of like, what am I after in this life? If what I am after is union with you, and it's something that I am being led to, but also something that I have, like, in that paradoxical, beautiful way of like, I hope for, in some ways, what I already have a taste of, and I can only hope for it because I have a taste of it. So I already have this to some extent, and I desire more and more of it. Okay. That's what I'm after. That's what my life's about. Okay. That's what you're giving me. That's very clear to me. That's what you're giving me. I have my moments where you're calling me to full surrender. I've made those commitments. I want to do this. That's my whole life. Then it's like, in my life, if I've discerned and all these things and I'm where I'm supposed to be, and this can apply, this is my area's vocation, but could apply to like anything, right? Like your work, your family situation, whatever it is. Okay. I'm where I'm supposed to be, which might be really hard or really painful or any, whatever, what have you. but I know in some ways, like in your mercy, that this is the best I could do to know that this is where I'm supposed to be. Then there's a sense in which if I'm not like others, I always think of like the idea of like a holiness. One way of defining holiness, I think about holiness, is to be set apart, you know? And I think there's a sort of thing where it's like, it's not about being set apart in a way of like, I'm isolated from everybody, but it's like in this way of this comparison thing, like, no, your life is not supposed to look like everybody else's. Like, and even when you look at the saints, like you look at John Paul II and Mother Teresa, who were so together at heart, like they were one at heart, like one in mission in a certain sense, because they were both in love with the same Christ and completely abandoned to his will for them. And both were still set apart, even from each other in a sense. Like he had this beautiful particular way of, like you guys were saying earlier, like reflecting the image of God. She had this beautiful particular way, and they both reflected the same love. So there's unity there, but it's like there's something about being set apart that is good, and so it's like even though there's pain and there's suffering, if I'm following the Lord and he loves me, he's with me, it is also good in some strange way. And I think like for me, it has been really fruitful to ask him, like, how is this good? Like, where is the good here?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. I have found so much, like the answer to that question when I've truly been open to it has been, there have been so many ways in which God has answered that question for me. And for me, it's like, I was talking to a friend about this recently, like, it's not like I show up to something, for example, on the thing of vocation and the Facebook photos of everybody with their families. And I'm 30, in my mid-30s, like people have kids in the double digits now who are my age, who I grew up with, who I love, and that's like crazy. I'm like, whoa, like, it's like insane. Yeah. But I look at people 10 years younger than me with 2 children, and I'm like, this is what's happening to my life right now. But then I think like, no, but what's the lot that I've been given? And and it's not visible, but it's very clear if I'm honest and I'm really serious about, like giving myself an account of God's goodness in my life. It's very, very clear, and I think that when I show up to my life in all these places, it's not about like, well, what do I have to show for these 30 odd years of life? Like, it's not like that. It's like, this is what I have. Like, it's me, it's what God has done in me.
Yeah.
My witness, it's my story. It's what I have to offer. And that's everybody. So it's like, whatever it is that's happened in my life, these are the ways in which God has chosen to shape and form me to be, like Aaron was saying, like that quote was saying, more like him, like to be more of him. And so I think like for me, that's been really helpful to be like, this is good. This is conforming me to him. And there are many ways in which that's very clear to me. Like, these are ways, Lord, that you are trying your hardest, even though I resist all, like, and that's a thing, right? Like, it's like, not like I'm like, well, this is great and I love it. No, I'm like, what's happening? What's gone wrong? Like Mayday, like, Houston, we have a problem. Like half the time I'm like, what is happening right now? But then when I like when I remember this, like being set apart thing, and I think, okay, wait a second, like, have I discerned something wrong? And I go through those, but no. And like in the peace of God, when I live my everyday, what is good? And there's so much good. There really, really can be, and there are moments of deep pain, but yeah, undergirding it is like, it really is God's goodness. And there really is something that he is actually doing in your life that is making you.
Yeah. I love that. I love the uniqueness of the saints, like exactly like that, because it's so true. Like, as they became holier, they didn't become less descript. They became more themselves. Like, they didn't blend into the scenery more and more until they disappeared. No, they actually became more and more themselves with their gifts and their quirks and their weirdnesses and their all of those kind of things, which is so beautiful. And I think I think the thing that has helped me probably the most is learning not to grasp, like I tend to grasp things, or I've tended to in the past, like to grasp things, like to grasp recognition, or to grasp like all of these things, and to like try and hold on to them as something. But then ultimately, I mean, it doesn't work because they don't either satisfy or they do, or then sometimes you do something like dumb and then you can't, you know what I mean? Like it's like the achievement stuff. But to see the, like, I'm thinking specifically about things like giving talks or like give a talk somewhere. And then like afterwards, I'm like, I feel like that was the worst talk I've ever given in my life. Or like, that was a good talk. Or like, that was like, like just the things, or like analyzing interactions or things like that. But I think for me, it's been like wrestling with the Lord, because I know that it's only him who can, like, at the end of the day, like, he just is able to quiet things and to like speak that word of like love and of like good enoughness and of like all of those kind of, like whatever it is that I need to hear, but sometimes I need to wrestle with him to hear that in that sense, right? And really ultimately it's like wrestling with my mind or my, like, but there's like a wrestling that is like to come to that place of like where he speaks, and he does speak, and he does he brings so much clarity to things. But it's just sometimes I find it's hard to get there, especially because the world is very noisy, and like things just continue to kind of come in and bombard you, even like when you're like trying to fight for that silence and that like word from him,
Well, I'm going to add a little sidebar in here because I just listened to, I'm sure many of our listeners are familiar with the Abiding Together podcast, which is wonderful. And their episode this week is on like silence and solitude and how to seek that in your everyday life. And then on their podcast, they shouted out the Poco a Poco podcast, who also just did an episode on silence. Oh, yes, they did.
I listened to that one. Yes.
Okay. So, as we're talking about this, and I think that's actually a good kind of, thing is we're talking about comparison and but coming back to this thing of like letting the Lord tell us who we are and remind us that this lie that we need to be like someone else is a lie,
or better than everyone else,
or better than everyone else, or whatever it is, but that we just need to be ourselves. We just need to be who we are. That is, to being able to, in order to hear him say the truth, we do need to have that quiet and that silence. And so if you need tips on how to develop that, I think
those would be great.
Those would be good podcasts.
Those two podcasts. Exactly. Beautiful.
Come back and listen to us after,
That's right. But that's like, right. Yeah. I think one time, didn't we joke that we were like the Canadian, when you guys were still in Canada, the Canadian version of Abiding Together, but with like dwelling in common.
Call our podcast that.
Yeah, dwelling in common.
Just like ripping them off, basically.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Right. What were we saying about not having to be the same as other people?
Yeah, exactly. So then we just compare ourselves to the Abiding Together podcast. This is good.
Which we love.
Anyways,
so much.
It just comes full circle. Good.
That's right. I do have one more thing that I thought of, which is, I may have shared this already, but I got to see Blessed Carlo Acutis's mom give a talk about his life, and he is so cool. So just like look him up. He's just amazing. I don't know if her talks are on YouTube, but she's just super honest and real about becoming holy and like getting to heaven and being with the Lord forever. And it's really beautiful. But anyways, he apparently had this saying that we're all born, which is kind of amazing. He died when he was 15. So it's like very profound for like a 15-year-old boy. I don't understand. It's
I love
really
this
bad.
one. Yeah.
But yeah, he said, we are born originals, but many of us die photocopies.
Ooh.
Yeah. Which is like kind of what we've been talking about, like,
don't do that. Such a good one.
Yeah. We want to live out the original gift to the max.
Nice.
I love that.
No comparison.
Beautiful. That. Well, I think that's a great place to end the conversation. It's God wink time, and it's Nicole has the God wink this week.
Music. It's God
wink time.
Like a little like 3-part harmony thing. Like
it would be like from Flight of the Conchords. I don't know if you've ever. It's business. It's business time. Except for it's Godwink time, but
that's really funny.
Slightly inappropriate, but highly hilarious.
Yes, so good. Yeah, I love them.
That's good. Okay, so my Godwink. Well, it's not going to sound like a Godwink actually, but it is a Godwink, I promise. So last episode, 2 weeks ago, we talked about grief and the paradox of grief, and I was reflecting in that episode on how I don't feel like I'm very experienced with grief, but as you just for me after doing that episode, I was reflecting on how that conversation gave me personally a chance to reflect on my own process of grief. Um, and then on Monday, the day that that episode released, my grandmother died, and it's the first like person that I'm related to that's passed away, except I guess my uncle um uh died last year, but it wasn't he was my aunt's husband, so it was different. Anyways, blood related, blood relative, some that I was close to, and so I was kind of amazed that that happened, right, kind of on the day that that episode was released, but also that was like the Lord had given me the chance to process a little bit about grief before I went through that experience of just of that. And so just like I guess being grateful that we have this podcast, and grateful to all of you who are listening, who kind of give us the motivation to keep recording this podcast, because it we're doing it for you, but also the Lord is using it in our lives as well. So so that's my God wink. It was just this reminder of how this podcast and these conversations are so helpful and meaningful, and just become very real in our everyday lives. So
it's like a meta God wink.
Exactly.
Right? Crazy.
Yeah, which is partly why we didn't record last week, because we meant to record on Tuesday of last week, and I was just very much out of it and not able to kind of do that. And
which I think worked well, because I feel like Rachel and I were also very tired.
Yeah, we didn't have any good reasons, but we were just also out of it.
We were just like, nope, it's just can't this week.
Yeah,
it's just,
that's right.
So
which is good. Yeah. But we are glad that you all joined us this week. Thanks for coming back, and we will look forward to being with you next week when it's going to be. Oh yeah, you guys are reminding me. Yes. Okay, so we are going to do for Advent a book series on The Cry of the Heart, which is about suffering, by Lorenzo Albacete. And so if you would like to get it now, you can get it at Amazon. You can get it at probably your local bookstore. You could maybe order it at a Catholic bookstore, things like that. But we're going to do that starting November 27th, because Advent is super early this year. So we're gonna have that first one after the Feast of Christ the King. So
and if you're wondering who this person is, maybe you've never heard of him, why should you read this book? There's a great, I think, Erin, you have the link to it that you can post on our social media, but
I can.
There is a great video with interviews about his life, and it's just kind of a little expose of who he was. And it's through the New York Encounter website, which is a ministry of the Communion and Liberation lay ecclesial movement within the church. And so we'll link it to that. So if you're curious, or you want to know more about what this is before you go buy the book, give that a watch. And if it speaks to you, then
we'll put it in the show notes. We'll put the link to that in the show notes.
I'm like looking around to see where my copy is right now, because it's just a little. I really recommend it. It's in the sense that like it's so readable. I just kind of I haven't started reading it properly yet, but I just kind of like breeze through it, and it's like it's so digestible. It's one of those books where you're like, it's not one of those books you're like, I really want to read this, but it's like really hard to read. It's just like you can do it, and it's not hard.
It's a joy. It's a joy to read, and very helpful.
So we're excited to start digging into that. So
nice.
Good. You guys will join us.
Yes, we are looking forward to it. And then and we'll see you next week.
I guess I'll say this too. If you don't want to read the book right now, but you I would still recommend tuning in, because I think it's going to be, it's not going to be like, we're going to be like, you have to have read because it's the kind of thing where it's just going to give us really beautiful
focused discussion
into like how we really think about suffering. So
totally,
this is true.
If you can't read the book, I would still, obviously, like if you have time and you would like to keep listening, I would still recommend that you continue to listen, and maybe it'll be a good info, or a good kind of exposure to what the book is really about. And
you can just listen.
But
exactly.
You could just
listen to the episodes first, and then decide if you want to get the book and read it yourself.
Because I'm really excited for what we're going to learn from it.
Me too. All right, ladies. Listen, it's been a joy, and we look forward to talking at you all next week. God bless you.
God bless everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of In the Thicket. If you like what you hear, give us a rating and hit that subscribe button. We have new episodes every Monday with more stories and honest conversations about life when the going gets rough and the hope and humor amidst it all. We'd love for you to join our community on Instagram and Facebook at In the Thicket Podcast. While you're there, let us know how we can pray for you. God bless and see you next week.